Hey, this is Brett the Hitman Hart. The excellence of execution and the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. And you're watching The Wrestling Collectors.
For 5 years, I've run WrestlingForSale.com, the world's first wrestling merchandise marketplace. I've bought and sold close to 10,000 vintage wrestling collectibles. Along the way, I've had the privilege of meeting some of the world's most passionate collectors. Call them psychos, call them hoarders. Whatever you call them, join me as I explore their never-before-seen piles of gold. These historians and wrestling archivists all strive for one thing, the Holy Grail. I'm your host, Ted Hirsch, and this is The Wrestling Collectors. Alright, first up on this week's episode of The Wrestling Collectors is CJ. He has one of the best collections in the world. He has tons of wrestling, but he also collects Nike, movie promo stuff, and Magic Johnson all-over prints. Even though his collection's well-rounded, when it comes to wrestling, he has to be mentioned among the all-time greats. If you follow him on Instagram, you already know that not only is he one of the best wrestling collectors in the world, but in terms of overall, I think he is my personal favorite. One of the only accounts out there that truly inspires me to, continue searching for movie promo stuff, for TV stuff, for wrestling stuff, for Nike stuff. The guy really has it all. So, CJ, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate being on here. And thank you for the kind words.
Of course. So for those at home that don't follow you, can you tell us a little bit about what you like to collect?
So yeah, you kind of mentioned a couple of items. So I am very heavy into the vintage Air Jordan game. I like movie promos, rap tees from the golden era, movie hats as well. A lot of wrestling related items. And I'm a big Bruce Lee and Bob Marley fan as well.
So am I. So when did you start collecting?
So I started collecting around, let's say, 2003. That's when I first got my eBay account. Mm-hmm. And back then, I didn't have a PayPal account. So in order to order items, I'd have to get money orders from the grocery store. So this was back in high school. So yeah, around 2003.
Yeah, I think I remember when I first started wrestling for sale, I went into For All to Envy on La Brea, and I was talking to my friend Kurt, and he had already known about you for years. He said that you would go into like and Still and some of the better stores on La Brea and just like pick it apart, and you were getting stuff way before most people started collecting wrestling or any type of vintage.
Yeah, it's funny because I once interviewed him for a college course I had on owning a business. Mm-hmm. And so I actually got to interview him. I gave him like 5 questions. He ended up sending me a couple shirts. I bought many shirts from him from his first runs, and I still have them to this day.
Yeah. And I mean, you're definitely one of the pillars, I'd say. I mean, when I first started my page, I think I signed up for the account in 2015 and really made it active in 2016. And you were like one of the first people on board. You were one of the first people I was truly in awe of their collection. So to have you on as one of the early guests is important to me. So to talk about wrestling specifically, when did you start getting into watching wrestling?
I started getting into watching wrestling probably around 3 years old. My dad introduced me to it. I fell in love with it. And once he got me my first wrestling figure, which was a Hasbro Hulk Hogan Series 1, I was hooked for life.
And so what era would you say do you like to focus on, or really brings home like the nostalgia and creates in your mind the focus of what you like to collect?
Yeah, the era I usually focus on is probably the golden era of WWF. I'm also a collector of mid-'80s Jim Crockett Promotions tees as well. So anything I'd say from 88 to around 92 is pretty good.
Yeah, that's kind of my sweet spot as well. So do you have a favorite wrestler?
Yeah, my favorite wrestler is Bret the Hitman Hart.
Love that.
Yes.
I think as a lot of people get older, I don't know, maybe when you were a kid, you were a Bret fan. I always loved Bret. But, when I was a kid, I was a big Hogan fan. I was a big Stone Cold fan. I was a big Ric Flair guy. But as I've gotten older, Brett has slowly creeped into my top 5. And especially watching a lot of matches that I just liked, and I didn't know what working a match meant. I didn't know anything really. The appreciation I have for Bret Hart, slowly has put him into my top 5 and pretty close to the top. And he has incredible merch, which I know you have quite a few items of his. So in terms of where it's at, I know, you've been collecting a very long time. I'm sure you remember the days when you could get on eBay and find what people would consider a grail now for about $25-30.
Correct.
So now that we're kind of at the point where, some of the stuff that we like, some of the stuff that we covet is kind of tipping that like $1,000 range, 1,000 plus. Where do you see it going? Do you think it's going to stick kind of in like hover right now, or do you think it's going to surpass this and we're going to look back on these days and say, oh my God, I wish I would have bought that for $1,000?
Yeah, I think it's going to surpass this actually. On Instagram, every other day I'm seeing raffles for all over prints. Those seem to be the rage right now. And some guys are getting 600 plus for an all over print where, me and you, we used to pay like less than $30.
Right.
So the game's changed. It's good. It's kind of hard for us collectors to find those certain things nowadays for the prices that we used to pay.
Right.
But hunting is always going to be fun for me.
Right. And this, there's two sides of it. Obviously, as things go up in value, we are lucky because, we've been collecting long enough we've kind of amassed this collection, and everything that we own is just going up and up and up and up and up. And getting into it now seems like a very scary thing, considering like if you started this year, some of these great shirts, you're paying automatically $500.
Correct. It is kind of scary now because
piling up to like what you have, what would you guess your collection, like size-wise? How many T-shirts and hats, jackets, things like that do you think you have in your wrestling collection?
I'd probably say over around the 300 to 400 range, maybe more, but that's just a good estimate.
Yeah. So imagine starting and trying to get to that level at these prices.
It'd be impossible.
Yeah. So we know that you have obviously one of the best wrestling collections. Is there an item out there that you are currently looking for, or items?
Yeah, there's a couple items that I'm looking for. One is a King Kong bunny. Another one would probably be the Royal Rumble 92 shirt, SummerSlam 91, and probably the Simply Ravishing shirt as well. So those top 4.
Those are definitely 4 of the best shirts. Shocked that you don't have them. Shocked that I have them and you don't have them, which is an odd thing. But certainly some of the best shirts that are out there. In addition to wrestling, do you want to talk about some of the other things that you collect pretty heavily? I know you mentioned it briefly, but is there another category that you're pretty passionate about?
Yeah, all over print Magic Johnson tees. Those were really big in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I just try to collect as many as I can whenever they pop up. So I've been collecting those for years too. And like I said, Air Jordan as well. I've been an Air Jordan fan my whole life. And it's taken over a lot of the obsession of wrestling, Air Jordans, rap tees, and whatnot. So
yeah, it's pretty incredible to see you post some of the Nike stuff. I personally am not actively searching for Nike stuff. I love getting a vintage thing here and there. Like I have a tracksuit, I have some hats, I have a few pairs of shoes, but nothing like what you have. Do you want to share some of your favorites?
Yeah, sure. So I know it was hard picking a top 5, so I picked out 10.
Okay.
Just out of the collection here. So I'll go over one by one.
Cool.
So first one, Miss Elizabeth T. I know there's only a handful of us that have one of these, so I'm happy to have one in the collection. Next is, like I said earlier, I like the Jim Crockett promotion, so got a Dusty Rhodes JCP shirt. This is from '86.
Yep, gorgeous.
Gotta love those Cal Crew tags, huh?
Cal Crew XL. That's
right.
Oh my God.
Anything smaller than that, it's probably impossible to fit as an adult.
Cal Crew XL.
Next one, WrestleMania 6 event tee.
Yep.
I know there's 2 versions of this tee. So one says live on pay-per-view, the other one's at the Sky Dome. So.
And that purple version is one of the most coveted shirts there is.
It is.
I think the long sleeve is more mass produced. It's a great shirt too. I have both of them because I love the event so much. But when you find the purple one, it really sets it apart and definitely in the top 20 best shirts of all time.
Yeah, just the color alone, the purple.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Classic.
It's similar to the WrestleMania 5 in the graphic with like the splash, but the purple color, like, you never really see it on WWF shirts.
Yeah, just pops.
Yep.
Next one to go is this Ric Flair Euro release from '94.
So crazy.
Super hard to find. Glad to have this one in the collection.
Yeah.
I know me and you both have this shirt. SummerSlam '89 bootleg.
Oh man, show the back. Wow, look at that thing. One of the best.
Yes. Next is the Crockett Cup '87 tee.
Love that one.
Yeah.
I have
Love
the
this
one
one
without
because
I have the one without the Rock and Roll Express, but that one is just incredible. That
Yeah,
color too.
yeah, this one's good. It shows a lot of the legends from that era.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Next one is the WWF Superstars, Brett and Rick, two of my favorites.
Wow.
This one is from '92. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, you can still see the glitter on Ric Flair.
The sparkles.
Next is an early WCW Big Van Vader shirt.
Love that.
Yeah, this one's cool. It's hard to find.
Yeah, I mean, I have the white one with the Japanese print.
Yes.
I like that one that you have slightly more. I think it's evil looking. It looks like Darth Vader.
It does, definitely.
Definitely one of the coolest WCW shirts. The only reason I'm not extremely jealous is because I do have the other one.
Yeah.
But that shirt, way up there on the list.
Yeah, I like the white one too. Isn't there a photo of Vader wearing it with those
With the
sunglasses?
Yep.
Next one is this dead stock Texas Tornado ringer tee.
You
You
know,
don't even believe the price I paid for this shirt.
whatever you paid, I think you probably got a good deal.
Yes, definitely.
The people who I'm interviewing on the show, I would really consider the best of the best. And you're the only one of the best that have that one. And I know every single one of them would pay big money to get that. So
Yeah, I'm really lucky.
Good about it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm lucky to have it in the collection.
Mhm.
And last but not least, one that I got from you.
Oh,
The
wow.
Blue Bret Hart.
That was
I cannot thank you enough for letting me purchase this one.
Of course. And it's mint, and it's from Brett. So if you're ever going to own that shirt, that's probably the best possible version you could ever own.
Yes.
And I would say with this Bret Hart, like as people are slowly starting to put him in their top 5, like everyone is starting to like go there and like seeing the merch. And then couple that with this trend that's happening with the all over prints and raffles. I've heard some absurd offers. And yours is a better condition than mine. Mine's just like, I think he wore it or something, but you have a mint one from him. That is a very high level shirt.
Prized possession in the collection. Thank you. I appreciate it.
CJ has amassed a collection of approximately 400 vintage wrestling items. He has a diverse lot of tees, hats, and jackets from the WWF, WCW, NWA, and other territories. CJ doesn't focus on one subgenre like some collectors. He has a very diverse mix of classic 80s catalog tees, all over prints, rare bootlegs, and very hard to find event tees. Some of his Tier 1 shirts include the Bret Hart blue font all over print, the 1989 Raging Cajun tee, the Bob Backlund Championship tee, the Halloween Havoc 91 shirt, and the Ric Flair Space Mountain shirt. I would guess that CJ's wrestling collection has an approximate total value of $200,000, and the value of these items keep going up. So, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on about your collection or collecting, or where you see this thing going?
Yeah, right now it's been fun all these years. It's just getting a lot harder and harder to find certain items now.
Mm.
Especially with everyone. There's a lot more wrestling pages on Instagram now.
Yep.
When we first started out, there was only a handful of us doing this thing. So
Right.
it's cool to see how it's grown.
Mhm.
Yet we're still finding things, through hunting. I
Right.
enjoy hunting. That's the best part of collecting for me.
Mhm.
Whether it be, through flea markets, garage sales, thrift stores. There's so many avenues where you can look and actually purchase things for the low. So that's always the thrill for me.
Yeah. I'm very fortunate to have, I guess, like the following that I have and the network of people that have, I've gotten in touch with over the last 5 years. And very fortunate that some of these things are coming to me. They'll
Yes.
message me and say, "Hey, I'm moving. Hey, I'm going through divorce. Hey, I'm this, and I'm trying to unload." And I've been very lucky to find some of the things I found. I hope when things go back to normal, I can go back out to flea markets, swap meets, just get out there again. It's a little scary right now, but hopefully soon. I do miss that. Um, do you want to tell everyone where to follow you,
Yeah.
where to check in with you, and if anyone does have any of those 4 items that CJ mentioned, please message him.
Yeah. You guys can feel free to follow me on Instagram at CJ Azurin. That's CJAZURIN. And I'd appreciate if anyone would sell me one of those 4 items.
All right, man. Well, I really, really appreciate your time. For me, this was an honor. For one, having a for real conversation with you, but also getting to talk to one of the true greats of collecting about their collection.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And one more thing I'd like to say is I know me and you go way back since you first started. And it was kind of funny, our conversations. I looked through our Instagram conversation where, we would look on eBay and we'd be like, hey, do you need this? Or can I buy it? You know what I mean? And if you needed it, I'd pass it on. You do vice versa. Or anytime we would see, sellers with multiple items.
Mhm.
For example, those King of the Ring all over print shirts. Remember that? Where we found the lady and she had a stack load. So we split it up, divided it, and we bought those. So
Yeah.
it's always been good. It's finally good to actually be introduced to you.
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me, and this was a wonderful experience.
And I'm going to add, it's very hard to find people, especially on the internet, where you can trust them with that kind of information. I know a lot of people who would just jump on those items and try to sell it back to you for hundreds more.
Mm-hmm.
So I do appreciate your honesty. I do appreciate you being a friend. And it's going to be one of my goals to help you find the 4 remaining items and countless others I'm sure you'll add to that list over the years.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. We'll catch up soon. Thank you for your time.
Do you miss attending live wrestling shows? Do you miss chanting with your buddies? Now you can from your own living room. Smart button, available now.
All right, next we're gonna catch up with Nick from Extra Cooler. He's one of my favorite wrestling artists in the world, and he's also gonna come on to talk about his new wrestling children's book. Nick was my first artist who made my first logo for Wrestling for Sale. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Extra Cooler and all of your day-to-day artwork?
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, you and I first connected maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And you had this awesome idea to, we did this Vader design with that helmet. And we did an exclusive print with that. And from there, that's when we did the logo and hooked up. Yeah, basically I got my start with this because I went to SummerSlam in Brooklyn the second year. And I was kind of tired of wearing the same old, WWE merchandise. No offense to them. But so I was like, what can I do that'll stand out? So I drew myself a Shawn Michaels Hasbro figure, threw it on a shirt, and picked up a few eyes at the Barclays. And that was 4 years ago. And I've been drawing pretty much consistently ever since, mostly wrestling related stuff. But I'm always available for non-wrestling related stuff, which is always kind of cool when people come to me with those ideas as well. Yeah, it's been an interesting 4 years. I've met a lot of cool people through this. very thankful for it.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely of all the wrestling related artists, I think you have one of the bigger followings, and I think you are definitely one of, if not the most talented.
Thank you.
I'm happy that you've had some great success. I love everything you've done for Dipperstein and some of the other people that I've actually seen it hanging in their homes. So it's really good that you are working on a book. So I want to hear about it, and I know everyone watching probably wants to hear a little bit about it. So
Yeah.
go ahead.
So actually, it's funny. A lot of those experiences with my art actually tie back to Brooklyn and the Barclays. It was probably 2 years ago in August when I was in Brooklyn. Actually, it was your first pop-up, I think. And the author for the book that I illustrated contacted me through Instagram, and he said he's got this idea, wants to run it by me. He's thinking about self-publishing the book. Ryan Schroet is his name. He's the author. And now we're here, and we just had our release date on September 15th for S is for Suplex. I, of course, have a copy with me. 2 years we worked on this together. We were originally going to self-publish it, and then we pitched the idea to Trism Books, who actually also has like Cody Rhodes, Young Bucks, Adam Page. They have children's books with them, and they love the idea, and we ran with it. Features 92 wrestlers and a dog, spanning from guys that are in AEW like Scorpio Sky and Sammy Guevara. It also features a ton of people from Impact. It even features some people who have made their way back to WWE, like John Morrison is in the book. Guys like Bob Holly and Billy Gunn are in the book. So it's pretty cool. We're really proud of it. There's a lot of cool people and very appreciative people in the book. So yeah, I'm making my rounds and saying hello, telling everybody about the book.
So where can people get this book?
So the book is available on trismbooks.com. You can also get it on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, and you can get it through me on my website. I'm doing kind of an exclusive thing where I'm signing copies of the book, and I'm throwing some stickers in with it. That's at extracoolerart.com. Just a little extra incentive, if you want a little message in it, whether it's for your kids. We're also kind of throwing the idea out there that it's, a collector's item. If you go to some house shows, some local shows where you can meet some of the talent, get your copy signed.
I was thinking that's an incredible little book to have, especially now that, I'm sure when you initially started the book, maybe they weren't kind of on the level that they are,
right.
Especially now that a lot of these guys have, and girls have great exposure on TV. I think getting a lot of it signed would be a very cool thing.
We watched as AEW kind of like opened things up, and we were like, wow, MJF's in the book. Sammy Guevara is on the back cover of it. Sonny Kiss is in it. Nyla Rose. A lot of people that have just been growing. Brian Pillman Jr. is in it as well. He's on one of my favorite pages. So yeah, like without giving it away too much, like I said, there's 92 wrestlers and a dog featured in the book. And we're really proud of it. Like I said, 2 years worth of work. We were going to self-publish, and, we opted to obviously sign a deal with Trism Books, and we couldn't be happier.
Great. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, talking about the book. Everyone go ahead and follow Nick. He posts incredible artwork, incredible, different designs, and he is available for custom stuff. So hit him up, shoot him an email. And yeah, Nick, anything else?
No, like you said, I'm all over. I like to pride myself on being able to do a bunch of different styles, and big, small, whatever you're looking for. As and most of the people probably watching know, I had the pleasure of creating that massive Hulk and Andre piece in Brian Dipperstein's home. That's
it's
like
palace.
Yeah.
I mean, well,
it's massive.
Great to catch up. Really
Likewise.
excited about the book. I know it's going to do very well.
Thank you.
Sure, we'll be in touch very soon. And good luck. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Thanks.
last up on this week's episode, we have Kirby, the man behind classic Portland wrestling. His shrine in the Pacific Northwest Territory makes him one of the most unique and interesting collectors in the world. Yeah, I would say that, you have one of my favorite wrestling collections. Usually a lot of the collections I'm in awe of are wrestling shirt collections that include items that I desperately need. Whereas your collection, I'm just in awe of because I didn't know like half these things existed. I didn't know much about the Portland territory. And I'm kind of just following your lead and learning more and more day by day as you post.
Yeah,
So,
it's definitely a rabbit hole, man. And, I'm sure yourself by collecting, it's like you learn a lot from a lot of these old timers who were there, experienced a lot of this stuff. And so, like it's very cool to uncover a lot of things like old photo albums that have like uncirculated photos, because it's one thing when you see photos that are like just simply found on Google image search, but it's really cool like when you're able to come across old 8x10s or things like that that are just from people's personal collections from their time there. So it's been an education for myself as well, and it's been very cool.
So for those at home who are not familiar with your page, can you please walk us through kind of what you like to collect, where you're from, and how this whole thing started?
Sure. So I grew up in a suburb outside of Portland called Beaverton. It's like where Nike is located. It's about 20, 30 minutes outside of Portland, depending on traffic. And basically it kind of came to be because as I started watching wrestling in the mid 90s, like kind of the Monday Night Wars and stuff, my dad made reference to like, oh yeah, like Jesse Ventura, Roddy Piper, like a lot of these names that we're all so familiar with, like, oh yeah, they got their start here. And that kind of stayed with me at the time. And then, you fast forward to like YouTube and things like that. And, it kind of dawned on me like, oh, I should look into this, see if there's footage of this sort of stuff. And there was just a wealth of this material out there. And so it kind of just started this rabbit hole of me just going down and just further and further into just now I'm kind of building my own prison. This is my office here, which is like kind of my gallery room with all my photos and stuff like that I've bought from people and things like that. But, the Portland territory is owned by Don Owen, who was like an NWA affiliate. And so they basically promoted Oregon, Washington, and then I believe into Vancouver. There was, they use the same booking office. So you see the same talent. The era I particularly fond of is like the mid 70s and the early 80s with guys like Buddy Rose, who, despite what people remember him for, his run in WWF as kind of an enhancement guy, was, trained under Vern Gagne. So he was like, can really work, he was just a great heel back then, kind of looked like a schlub, but like can do everything in the ring. Roddy Piper, of course, and then some more local talent like Dutch Savage, who's more of like an old guard 60s, 70s guy. But I just, that's kind of where it all started for me. It was just, like my dad mentioning this stuff, and there's just all this material out there. So I just kind of went for it, and it's just become kind of an obsession.
So when did you actually start your Portland collection?
I would say probably around 7 or 8 years ago. I was, again, like kind of with the footage and stuff, I tried to figure out how I could find this stuff. And a lot of the tapes, like from old tape traders, have been digitized. And so I don't know, I don't think it's still around, but I'd go to like iOffer, which is like a website where you can buy a lot of this stuff that's like in weird copyright limbo, or maybe, and so there'd be sets of like different territories, and you could buy them pretty cheap on DVD-R. So I'd buy all the Portland stuff I could find, some cases like Memphis or Mid-South wrestling. And so that kind of started then. And slowly after that, I was joining like Facebook pages that like had a lot of these old timers again who were there at the matches. And so I started entering in dialogue with these people and asking about their collections, their experiences. And it's pretty interesting because a lot of the folks I've since met, like their experience during their youth mirrors mine. Like a lot of these guys were like into rock and roll music, but also really like wrestling. And that's like, I saw myself into these people. Hopefully they saw themselves in me and my growing interest in Portland wrestling and the territory itself. So kind of started there, and then, just coalesced into what it is now.
So do you want to tell us, I know you mentioned photos and some clothing, but do you want to describe the type of items that you look for?
I love 8x10s, old uncirculated photos from the matches. Programs, I have like a whole bunch of programs from back at the Portland Sports Arena. Some of them like really big cards. Like I have the April 15th, or April, yeah, maybe it is April 15th, 1980, like the Playboy Buddy Rose and Roddy Piper hair match. Like I have a program for that, which was like a white whale for a time. Different shirts. Like I made a replica shirt of the old extravaganza card held at the Memorial Coliseum kind of during the WWF war, things like that. Behind me, I have one of Buddy Rose's robes that I don't have photos of him wearing it, but it is like from his collection as it was sold to me from a wrestler who trained under him. And so like, that's another thing is I have an 8x10 photo album that belonged to Buddy. So a lot of the stuff in my collection, it revolves around Buddy Rose, as he's become one of my favorite wrestlers without a doubt, and how important he was to the territory.
And I know, I think it was last year, you created a pop-up that was basically like a museum showcasing all the stuff that was.
I did a gallery with some friends at their gallery's called the Weird War Space, but they use it just kind of show art. And they usually have like horror movie posters and things like that, meet and greets of that type sort of thing. But they had a whole for March of this last year, and so I was able to kind of put my collection in there, which also was really helpful too, because a lot of this stuff has been existing in tubs in my garage. So it was nice to be like, finally commit to doing something, framing this stuff and having a way of displaying it somewhere instead of it just existing in my garage, because it kind of just like, trying to find a higher purpose with all this stuff and how to make it make sense. And so this is kind of like one of the evolutions of the process,
Cool.
Yeah.
So why don't you walk us through some of your favorite items from your collection?
Yeah. So among one of my favorites is the Buddy Rose robe I have, which I believe, if I had to guess, was probably made around the same time as you've seen his red velvet robe that he wore a lot in Portland. And I'm guessing that this robe was probably made around the same time. And once he had this red velvet sequins robe made, that he probably just put this one to the side. So that one is dear to me because I haven't seen photos of it, but I know of its legitimacy based on the people I bought it from. Again, too, another thing was my photo album of 8x10s that was from Buddy Rose's personal collections. So that had many photos I hadn't ever seen before uncirculated, like, a photo of Jesse Ventura signed in ballpoint pen in the Portland Sports Arena. And the Sports Arena, for those who don't know, is always very easy to identify because of low-hanging ceilings. It was in a repurposed bowling alley. So whenever, I see those low-hanging ceilings, it always kind of delights me a little bit because, that's like something very personal to the Portland wrestling thing. So I have a bunch of photos from that was from Buddy's collection. Recently, a friend of mine, Ken Hamlin, who lived in Tacoma, who used to shoot matches in Tacoma in the late 70s, he also shot Super 8 footage from that time. So you're seeing a lot of these matches of guys like Piper, Rose, the Sheep Herders, things like that on Super 8. And again, like Portland footage is pretty scarce. They always taped over the footage every week. Donovan was kind of known for being pretty tight with money. So it was really cool to be involved in the process of getting these Super 8s digitized and everything. That was really cool to be a part of that. In addition, when Roddy Piper's kind of estate started going on sale a couple years ago, and I know you've got a few things from that. One of the things I was able to get was his wrestling license from Washington. That's for the year of 77 into, I believe, like July 78. And that, that was just a tremendous piece to have. That, like, when I saw it, I just was like, oh my God, I need to have this. And probably my most prized thing in my collection is these pair of tartan trunks that Piper wore. And I don't think I would be biased in saying they're probably the trunks that are most typified of Piper during his time in Portland. And it's these kind of green, yellow tartan trunks that, when I saw them, I was just like, oh my God, I need to have these things, so that is probably my most cherished thing that I have in my collection without a doubt.
Is there anything that you're currently looking for? Like, do you have a holy grail?
Yeah, that's kind of, I was thinking about that, and it's kind of unique to the situation because now I feel like I've definitely moved on to like trying to find ring worn stuff. And when you do that, that starts to get really difficult because it's either one of one or, in a lot of cases. So again, like I've mentioned, the velvet red robe that Buddy Rose wore with the sequins. I know that exists, and I know that it's in somebody's collection, as I think Buddy sold it in the aughts sometime. He kind of started selling a lot of his collection around that time. So that is definitely on my top list of things that, you know, I would probably be willing to open up another line of credit in order to get it. That is certainly one of them. And then I have a close friend who is also a mutual collector. He's a bit older than me, so he got to go to a lot of these matches, but he has Buddy Rose's boots, which are his snakeskin boots, which I can't remember if he had multiple of these boots made, but they very well might be the very first boots to step in the ring at a WrestleMania, because it does say Rose on the side of them, but he taped over it so as to maintain the anonymity and be the executioner, as he was, you know, the first person in the first match in WrestleMania. So that's another one that I keep pestering my friend Rob about. I'm like, hey man, when are you ready to, you know, fork over those boots, man? So it's a lot of stuff like that, or especially the territories were known for, like the iron-on shirts that people would just make for like a TV taping. So I love stuff like that. I have actually a Piper one that he wore to a taping on June 14th of '80 for like I think it was like a 14-man battle royal. That was actually a pretty significant match. I also got as part of when the Piper estate was going on sale. So stuff like that, you know, it's very, very tailored to my interests, and it's certainly doesn't make it easy, but you know, you just you keep a Rolodex of these people, you know. I'm sure you know how it is, you know. You kind of have the connections you keep kind of private from other people because you don't want people to swoop in on it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's those kind of
I'm
folks out
usually
there.
in a tough position where I'll do a deal with someone, and part of the deal is they want me to give them a shout out on Instagram.
Sure.
And then I kind of shoot myself in the foot because that's the end of it right there.
Right.
Luckily, I only have about 8 more shirts left that I really need. So,
yeah.
You know.
I guess from a more practical standpoint, I will say I've always wanted, well, not always, but in the recent years, I've wanted to get that Jim Crockett promotion Road Warriors shirt where it's white and it kind of looks like a death metal or thrash metal shirt with the Road Warriors on it with the skulls.
Yeah.
If anybody out there wants to help me with that, I run like a medium. I'm like a medium, I guess, small medium. I don't know.
So I'm like a LXL.
Yeah.
Tweener.
Yeah.
I've had that in an XL, and I was swimming in it. I have a large right now, and it's a little tight.
Yeah.
You know, we in previous episode we've talked about, you know, just having to lose weight, and the ultimate goal is just to fit into these items.
Right.
So I can tell you, if I get another XL, I could potentially trade you or sell you my large.
I'd love that, man. I would totally love that.
Yeah,
that's definitely a bucket list item. Such a cool shirt, you know.
I made the mistake of drying it one time.
Sure.
Kind of closer to a medium now, but you know, still one of my favorite Road Warrior shirts. So once I am able to replace it, I'll let you know.
Okay, perfect, man. I love it.
Yeah. So we kind of went over your collection. We discussed your incredible pop-up that you did. Is there anything else that you want to discuss? Anything that you want to draw attention to?
I wanted to acknowledge a few people in the community because there's a lot of people who are maintaining and keeping the history of Portland alive with the wrestling here. And a couple people, Rich Patterson, for example, I believe he's a programming director for the Blazers for their radio programming, and he has been for quite a while. But he knew Buddy, and basically all the footage that exists because this guy Rich had it digitized, and that wasn't an easy task for him because some of this was pre-VHS and beta stuff, so he had to track down this machine called the Quasar Time Machine and have this stuff digitized. And what made it worse was because these tapes weren't stored correctly. It accumulated mold all over it, so constantly having to like clean the contacts of these tapes and then get it digitized and stuff. And then on top of that, dating all this stuff. There's, you know, hundreds of hours of footage. So Rich was very instrumental in a lot of the reason why people even know about a lot of the history or care about it. And Matt Farmer is he runs Defy up here in Portland. It's great indie wrestling. he's like a total historian. He like knows dates and everything, numbers, figures, and everything for cards around here. So he's been really instrumental in helping me with a lot of this information, as well as, again, my friend Ken Hamblin, who shot a lot of the Super 8 footage and has sold me some of his photo collection. Like, he shot what I think is maybe the only photo of Rip Oliver and Bruiser Brody for one of the memorial cards, which I keep pestering about. I'm like, man, you got to sell me that one of these days. And then again, Jim Valley right now. Jim Valley is another guy who does a wrestling, it's a Portland WrestleCast that's on the Wrestling Observer Network. And he's not in the best health, so I'm wishing him a speedy recovery. Hopefully he's doing okay. But again, he's also been really intrinsic to the history of Portland wrestling. I believe at one time he was a commentator in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then again, my buddy Rob, you got to sell me those Buddy Rose boots, buddy. I mean, one of these days. But yeah, I just wanted to plug those people. They've helped me along the process and taught me a lot about the subject. So it's been very cool, you know?
Yeah. And I think I've definitely learned a lot just from talking to you for 15 minutes. So,
yeah.
You know, I thank you. Anyone who stumbles upon your page will eventually thank you. I think it's such a cool idea. I love seeing the regional stuff. I grew up in WCW, WWF world. So, you know, to see what was going on outside of those two and kind of see what was going on as like I guess you could call it the prequel to WWF, and seeing where some of the best talent they ever had came from. I think it's truly incredible. And I thank you so much for just putting us on and teaching us.
Yeah, thanks, Ted, man. Yeah, and it's, you know, it's an origin story, and that's what I really like about this whole thing. And hopefully, I'd like to see other people, whether it's Instagrams or whatever, doing things to document their regional wrestling, which maybe they grew up or wherever it was promoted, you know, because that's the stuff I like too. It's really interesting, you know.
Yeah, I would love to see a Texas account. I would love to see a Mid-Atlantic account.
Yeah.
I think that would be so cool. And it's kind of shocking that no one's really done it. So.
Right.
I know it's a huge undertaking, and I sincerely appreciate you doing it. And thanks for teaching me.
Yeah, Ted, thanks for having me on, man. And again, too, it's been cool talking with you. We've never really got to do this formally, so it's been rad, you know.
Yeah, and we'll definitely catch up soon. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you.